everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter film crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
You can you can like and comment on our YouTube videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us everywhere podcasts are found at 16 millimeter film crew podcast, and you can visit us on our website at www.16millimeterfilmcrew.com. So this week we watched Nouvelle Vague, or French New Wave, or New Wave in French, directed by Richard Linklater. After the 1959 Cannes Film Festival, Francois Truffaut's film The 400 Blows was a resounding success, paving the way for aspiring young filmmakers. Supported by Truffaut and Claude Chabrol, Jean-Luc Godard tries to convince producer Georges de Beauregard to finance his first feature film, Breathless. This movie stars Guillaume Marbach, Zoe Deutsch, and Aubrey Dillon. So, Dale, what are your thoughts about this film?
I love the film. It's like an introspective of Jean-Luc Godard. Richard Linklater has mentioned his love of French New Wave, which I'm not surprising. He's one of those auteur style directors, which is very inspiring to a lot of auteur, like French New Wave inspired a lot of auteur directors. And studying, French New Wave and learning about. I've only really seen 400 Blows. We've and particularly we watched Masculine and Feminine, which is another French New Wave style film. But I don't know. I don't have much knowledge on it, but the knowledge I do know, it's uh the principles of French New Wave still exist to the day. It's a very auteur-driven movement. Like as you watch this movie, he's like, I'm not shooting with any lights, no script. We're doing this off the cuff. And very much if you're familiar with basically 24-hour film projects of that nature, like we're just gonna go off the cuff, come up with an idea and commit it to the screen, which I do think is a concept, or not a concept, but a style a lot of modern directors now still try to imitate. I remember, for me in college, like everybody thought they were unique by saying, "Oh, we're not good, all natural lighting. We gonna grab some DSLRs, we gonna shoot." And then you watch this and you learn about French New Wave. That's what they were doing back then. Those principles transferred into Dogma 95, which is another, film movement, founded in is Danish basically, which those same concepts transferred over, so every generation kind of thinks they're creating something new as far as cinematic styles, especially with the auteur style. But it's clear the president was set with guys like Godard and Truffaut, and this movie just showcases his style.
Yeah, I kept hearing about this movie in particular, Breathless, from like when I'd watch interviews with actors and stuff, and they talk about this movie a lot. Haven't seen it, but this movie made me want to go see Breathless. So I think I'm gonna have to check that out now. But what I liked about it is that like it was showing the process of movie making, but not just like movie making in the general sense, but in the sense of like doing something cutting edge and revolutionary. And I really thought that that was cool. And I don't know, I like that like the process of movie making has always, it's not that it's always been the same, but that there are certain touch points where it's like you have the producers who are very worried about the money, and like there are rules that you're supposed to follow, and how you deal with actors and how the movie's going to come together in the edit. Like all of those things are still like commonalities throughout like time. It doesn't matter which decade we're in, but I do feel like when you are doing something new and innovative, those pressures come on a lot stronger. And I think that that was the enjoyable part about watching this movie, was seeing how Goddard kind of deals with all of those things, because he doesn't like really answer any questions or like address any concerns. What he does is he's just like, this is art, so I'm just gonna do it. And then everyone's like, okay, I guess we gotta let you do it. Like even something like that where they're discussing like how the movie's gonna be made, and the fact that he's like, you have 20 days, and he was like, that's more than enough. And I'm like, eh? Like nowadays making a movie in 20 or 23 days, like that's a lot of pressure. Like you have to be like moving, like you're working every single day, crazy hours, because it's like such a short amount of time. Like if you compare something like this with something like a Marvel movie, which will take you about like 6, 7 months to make, the fact that he was like 20 days is good. Don't even worry about it. He didn't even show up to work for some of those days. Like they were just vibing. They were like in the cafe chilling 2 hours and then they were out. I'm like, I feel like nowadays that's probably some people's dream. Like, yes, don't keep me on a set for that long. But it was interesting kind of seeing how he made movies versus like the sensibility of Jean Seberg, who is an American actress, I think, but
Hmm.
I think she married a Frenchman, so that's why she like knew French and stuff. I know Kristen Stewart had played her in another movie, but Zoe Deutch is playing her in this one.
Hmm.
And to see her sensibilities come up against his, and the fact that like she's like, we don't have sound, like I don't have a script, like I don't know what I'm doing here, and it made her really uncomfortable. But it also brought out like this fairly incredible performance that maybe she wouldn't have been able to like pull out in any other way if she was working with Truffaut or the other people who she wanted to work with.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed her relationship with Jean Paul. Oh, sorry, not that real man's name is Jean Paul Belmondo, but the actor who is playing that character in this movie, and how he has a much more like relaxed um and I think trusting way of how he makes movies where he's like not he's a professional actor, but like he's not like on the level of her. And so he has a much more like free flowing and like trust with Godard that like it's a good balance between the both of them because he kind of keeps her together when she's like freaking out because she's like, I need structure, and he's like, let's just go with it. I thought that was like a really good kind of dynamic that made I guess could get overlooked because the movie is more about Godard and his making of this film, but I think that their dynamic was so good. And I really enjoyed watching that. And I thought it was like just two different ways of like how actors could approach material and how they can approach like the working process. Everyone has their own different process, but like it can still work if it's like, I don't know, if you had that like magic or whatever to like kind of keep the thing together. So I think this movie was definitely for like the nerds, like the people who like love this stuff. And because honestly, I did find it so interesting and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if like you could show this to anyone and they would like, really respond to it, but I think for like the film bros and girlies, like I was locked in. I was like,
Yeah.
I enjoy this.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I love the battle they have as not even just as actress. They're coming from different worlds. Like she constantly says this movie is very un-Hollywood,
Hmm.
and it's at a time when Hollywood it was a studio system. Like now when people talk about Hollywood, like before, like you see actors and directors and stuff, like some directors will do like, oh, I'm doing a three-picture deal with Columbia or whatever, and they'll do through three pictures with Columbia and get a fourth one that as a project they want to do. Like to get the passion project out, they'll do a couple of films for one studio and then do a passion project. Which guys like uh Christopher Nolan is known for that. He'll do like, oh, you want me to do Batman movies? Cool. Then I get to do Inception after that, or during that. But she's coming from like this isn't very un-Hollywood because she's used to a certain structure, and she's like diametrically opposed to almost everybody on set other than the producer and I guess only the person who's kind of like saying what the fuck is this, her makeup person, you
Hmm.
know. They're like, oh, this is how films are made, this is how they must be structured, it must follow everything to a T. And and the funny thing was because in the French New Wave movement, all the directors and almost all the actors are really close to each other. So these are people he's worked with on other projects. I mean, the only person he's kind of getting to know would be the cinematographer or the cameraman they're using, like former soldier who's like, okay, good, I can do handheld stuff, blah blah blah. But everybody else has the same mindset. Like all these directors, all like Truffaut, Godard, they all wrote for the same magazine for a while, and they're all in the same circles. So she's also diametrically like fighting a whole like a culture that she's unfamiliar with as an actress.
Yeah, it's very true. And I feel like this movie is good at showing like what I mean, I don't know. I feel like the French New Wave movement wouldn't have happened without the war. It wouldn't have happened anywhere else, I don't think. I feel like it was like a very specific thing to this like time and place where it's like people are just coming out of the war. It's like what the 50s or something. And like the idea that she would be a director of a movie like is still weird, but like it's also like fertile ground where you can break rules and you can do things that are different because there's not like a set plan.
Yeah.
Like they're not in Hollywood, so there's not like a system where it's like these are the things that you have to do in order to be successful. It's like very much a culture, it's a counterculture type of thing where it's like you and all of your friends are working together and being inspired by each other, and that's how you're creating like new stuff. And it reminds me of like because it's the only thing I can compare it to in like modern history where it like during the 70s where you had like Scorsese and Spielberg and De Palma and all these guys who were like coming up at the same time and Hollywood was changing so they were able to do different stuff and make kind of innovative new movies and stuff like it reminds me of that. That's something I can like compare it to. But I really did like that his friends were like on the set with him and they were also giving him advice that sometimes he took, sometimes he didn't. I liked how this movie really pushes forward the people behind the scenes who make the movies work. Like the first AD, the cinematographer, the script supervisor, like they were prominent roles in this movie. And I thought that was
Yeah.
great because those are the people who
Make
like
it work.
make it work and they rarely ever get any credit for what they do. So like I really appreciated that piece of it. That's why I liked it a lot because I was like, yes, show the people who are like making this actually run. Because like he's the ideas man. Goddard is like the ideas man. He's like the guy, the mysterious
I'm
guy trying
running
to
on vibes and stuff, you
running
know.
on vibes. And it's like everyone else who kind of makes this the work, like who actually puts together the film. And I really appreciated that they spotlighted
Yeah.
those roles because
Yeah.
they're important.
I love the fact that you have him fighting the producer because most people don't understand the battle that constantly happens behind the scene between the director and the producer. It doesn't happen as much now because a lot of these major box office films and or the streaming only films that these directors get contract for, they're producing them themselves. So
Hmm.
you're right now in this modern era of Hollywood, you're very rarely fighting unless the director desperately needs funding. You're really not well, if you're a known director, you're not really fighting for funding. Producers will let you do because they trust you. Like this is his first movie. Like before that, he was doing like shorts, writing, industrial films for and stuff like that. So to see that struggle, like I'm giving you a chance, 'cause I love your writing. I'm going to give you a chance. And the constant battle of the creative person and the pocketbook, the purse strings, which we see now in modern Hollywood, the issues we have with a lot of these CEOs who want to strip, everything, and the actors and their union and the creatives, like that schism has always been there, in the industry, and it's good to see it actually play out if people realize, oh, this issue has been happening for a while. And I like how you mentioned earlier about how this is like a youth-driven movement. It's a very like, and you mentioned like Scorsese and all those American filmmakers coming out of Vietnam, like they were post-war, were fighting against that, revolting against that, much like a lot of the younger people during French New Wave, like his cinematographer was in Vietnam. The French also fought in Vietnam as well. Like, and then the Americans fought like 30 years later. But like stuff like that, they're like young people, former soldiers, unsatisfied or uninterested with the current state of, what they're experiencing. And a lot of that also went into a lot of their writing and stuff. Like his number one thing was like, I want to break all the rules, and that's everybody's first thing when you go like film school or whatever, or you're doing everything. Everybody's like, oh, these are the rules. I want to break them and I create something. That's something young creatives we all strive to do. We want to break all the conventions that exist, and somehow in breaking the conventions, we all follow the rules of breaking the conventions, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably all been done before. I think that what's new is that we have technology that kind of puts us in a different position where we can actually do something completely different because, obviously back then they didn't have the technology to do a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that we can now. But honestly, if I like the idea of like breaking the rules and like pushing the limits, if I was on that set, I think I would have quit because I don't think I could function that way where it's like we don't have a schedule, we don't have a script. like you're he's literally doing the I got concepts of a plan type of thing. Like it's too
Laissez-faire.
yeah, improvisational,
Yeah.
experimental. Like, and experimental is fine because there are directors who do that all the time, but like they have like a shooting list. Like they have
Yeah.
like like I think I would not be successful if I was on that set. Even though I think it's so important that someone like Godard had the ability to like experiment the way that he did. Like I feel like it's so important that like someone like saw his potential and like invested in that, because then I mean, you don't get other kinds of films or filmmakers if you don't have him and all of his other colleagues. Like, so
Yeah.
it was important that it happened. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, for me personally, I would have freaked out if I was on that set. Um, but I also love that he was just like using his friends and he's like, come and be in this scene and you're just gonna say this one thing right here. Like, we don't have to pay the extras if we can just like hide the camera. And I'm just like, I like that he was that it kind of gets to like the what being a director is, where you're
Mhm.
kind of problem solving
Yeah.
on the like in real time,
Yeah.
and you're figuring out different ways to shoot something, and and I don't know, he wasn't worried about the continuity, obviously, which again is another.
I now me as an editor, like nah, continuity. Like
That's all I was thinking about.
I need like that plate wasn't there before. I need it back where it was. Like
I was like, oh, the
yeah,
ladies in the editing room are going to lose their mind. And I'm
yeah,
really wondering, like, I mean, but that's the thing, he envisioned a different format of like how storytelling
yeah,
goes.
yeah,
But if I was in the editing, again, like if it was me, I would also lose my mind, because I'm like, how do we piece these stuff together? Like it's not gonna make any sense. And they figured it out. So props to the ladies who did that.
yeah. It like I think in with the movie Breathless, like from based on the few things I know about it, it like it's it started the idea of basically jump cuts and
Yes.
like or the transitions kind of not really thinking like it kind of like we're used to like the one of the editors said yeah we need continuity because we need the eye line to be the same. It's like he's like fuck all that, like that transition and like you could see them like the evolution stuff of like how everybody like shaky cam kind of stuff and what he's doing, that kind of stuff. Like it laid the precursor for a lot of the stuff or film styles we have now. Like I do think some of it tends to be overused or people rely on shaky cam a bit too much. Like me, my editing style, I'm not a fan of jump cuts a lot, but I can
Hmm.
understand if it works thematically. I do think some directors use jump cuts a little too much where it doesn't fit the story. And that's also in breaking the rules, you have to know what rules to break that work for your story.
Yes.
Um yeah, and I like the fact that, these I think it was harder for these directors back then because camera equipment and stuff is like a lot more expensive. Like I've had like kids at my church like, "Oh, I want to shoot movies. I want to do right. What can I do?" I'm like you got like I remember it was a big deal in college to like get a DSLR. Like I remember there was
Hmm.
like a handful of us in like one of my classes, like me and a bunch of other people who got went out and brought our own cameras. That was a big deal to have your own camera. Like now, like what I see now is the same steps of new wave and all this stuff. Now kids are like, yeah, I shot this on like an iPhone or Android or whatever. Like
Hmm.
the access to equipment is so much easier now than what a lot of these guys had to work with. Like he had to fight his like physically fight his producer to shoot his movie this way.
Hmm.
Now I think for younger directors, you don't have those kind of barriers anymore.
Yeah, I feel like now I mean, I feel like it's still for like independent people who are just coming up, it's still difficult to like get the funding for your
Yeah,
movie, but now it's more just like battling the studios so they don't like mess with it once it's shot. Like
yeah,
that's kind of, I feel like, what's more difficult now. But even when we were in college and I was and like one of our assignments was to like make a short, film or something like that, or like film something. I remember that was one of our assignments, to like shoot a short like movie or whatever. The way that that was so difficult, and maybe because it's like college kids, so like it's just harder to get people to like focus, but
yeah,
like, oh my God, that was like so it was so much. Like it was so much. I feel like it's different when you have like professionals who are like who actually care and want to be there. So it makes it a lot easier. But like when you have just like a bunch of kids running around, like just do it this way. I don't know. It was honestly so hard. So like I know that for professionals, their difficulties aren't the same that like in your student film class you're trying to figure it out, but like so much respect to people who do this job. It is not easy at all. Like for anyone who just thinks that like actors are just praying dress up and directors are overpaid and they're sitting in a chair just yelling at people, like that is not at all what the situation is. Like making movies is hard.
Yeah,
It's very hard.
yeah, yeah. And even with this movie, as we're watching, Godard's journey as a director from being a critic. He's pulling quotes. He's like I'm a student of this. Like in his writing and his reviewing of other films, and in the making of this, like because this movie is essentially a behind the scenes version of Breathless.
Hmm.
Linklater has him referencing other directors. He's referencing T.S. Eliot. He's like, even though I like, and that's literally what most of film school is beyond the
Yeah.
actual tangible filming. Like he's like, I've studied this. Like even though I'm not following the same structure, I can say, oh, this shot needs to look like this movie. And when his cinematographer's like, I don't know what you're talking about, he can go, it looks like this. Like he is still a student and understands where he's coming from. So it might look like, he has no idea what he's doing, but he's like, I have the picture in my mind of this inspiration, that I have, and I will use it as reference material for what I want to create. And I think that was the thing with him not really knowing what he wanted to film, because in his head he's still trying to say, how do I want this to look? As I'm figuring out. I think for sometimes, like you said, you need some kind of adaptation. Being adhered to a strict shot list sometimes isn't fun. Like I said in college, sometimes I would shoot for coverage. I would get as much shots as because I'm my directorial style is me thinking as an editor. I want
Hmm.
to be able to know if I need something, I can replace something, and that's not everybody, every director, every editor has their own style. Like me, I prefer coverage. In case this shot doesn't look good or this take the director thinks is good, I want to be able to swap it for another take for another angle that flows better for continuity's sake. That constant back and forth, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point as well. But I feel like I think for every first time director, you're wearing your references. Like whatever has been inspiring you, whatever you've been thinking about watching, like that's usually what's going to come out in your first film. And it usually takes directors like a couple of films before they have like their voice, a definitive pattern of like how they make movies. So I feel like it's interesting with Godard because it's like he did have a very clear vision of like how his style was going to be because he didn't want to adhere to any rules and he wanted to do something completely different. But also he was wearing those references and that stuff that he had been thinking about and the artists and the authors that he'd been reading and stuff like that. Like all of that was coming out in this.
Yeah,
So it's funny because it's like he had his own style, but he also was like drawing a lot from the stuff that he had been
yeah,
seeing previously. But I also think that's actually very helpful, especially for actors, because it's like when he was talking to the main star and he was like, it's your Humphrey Bogart and this like that to me would be helpful because it's like a direct reference of like what you need to do, what you need to bring.
yeah,
Um, and it's funny that you said that like you shoot movies like or you shoot footage as an editor, like that's how you're thinking and coming from it. Because I think that when I was watching the Martin Scorsese documentary, that's kind of how he was doing it too. It's like he was always in the editing bay, like he was there with the editor, like side by side, every single step. And I feel like there are some directors who direct more from like an actor's perspective because they are actors or like that's just the world they come from. My friend like Greta Gerwig does that a lot. So it's like I think that's so true. Like whatever your experience was previous to being in the director's chair, that's kind of how you're going to direct your movie. And for him, it felt like he was coming from it from a very like intellectual, like he's obviously very well read. He was a writer before, so like that was coming out in it. So it's interesting that you brought that up because I was like, yeah, that is true. I feel like a lot of
yeah,
people do that.
yeah. And I do want to praise a lot of these actors are French. I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
their work, but
Mm.
I will say like Zoe Deutsch, like like I think I'm blown away by her. I don't have a lot of reference of her stuff. I think I've seen her on Jury Number Two. I think she was on like Disney Channel at one point as like a bit character for some stuff. But this performance I thought was like really like blown away by it. This being the first major thing I have of seen of her, I'm like greatly impressed with her performance. You know.
Yes. And I follow her on Instagram, so the way I've been seeing photos of this movie for like a year of her just like on set and then the movie coming out. But yeah, I thought she did a great job. First of all, learning another language, or maybe she knew it before, I'm not sure. But it also like switching in and out from the English to the French, like
Mhm.
that's very impressive because
Yeah.
like that's hard. Like that
And
even that's really hard to do.
yeah, and it worked because even though it might have come off there's some pronunciation issues with her French, it worked because the actor she's playing is from Iowa, so it's still to a degree
Yes.
within her American mess ups are still within character for the actor she's playing. There were some times where I heard like, oh, that's really American sounding and less French sounding with the way she delivered some of her lines in French.
Yes, and I didn't watch the movie that Kristen Stewart was in, so I don't know anything about her life. But I think she was like a civil rights activist. Like she's
Yeah, she
cool.
she gave a lot
Jean
to
Seberg is
NAACP and stuff. I think she was
a cool
in
lady.
like she was like blacklisted at one point.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, so
That would happen to her. But yeah, I like that the first of all the character in Breathless is supposed to be American. So it's not like her accent would have been such an issue watching it because like that is supposed to be the character, like an American woman in France. And then so it didn't bother me actually when I was hearing her speak against like obviously the native French people. Like I can definitely hear that you are an American, but
yeah,
like I think it definitely worked for like all the levels of her playing Jean and also Jean playing the character of Patricia. So
yeah,
I thought that really worked, but she was really great in this. I feel like all of the actors, again, because they're French, I don't really know what they've been in before and I haven't seen them before. But even the actor who plays Godard is like, everyone was so great. And I think whoever cast this movie cast it perfectly because when
perfectly.
you look at like the side by side photos of the actors and the real people, they look so close to like what the actual real
Yeah,
people look like, which is always nice. Like to because you don't if you do know about these people, you can suspend your disbelief and like really go with it. So
yeah. I do like the use of, hey, I'm gonna introduce the character they're playing as well, with those little cutaways. Like it's a double reference when they shot that scene where they have everybody, the whole crew,
yeah,
on the like near the water fountain, like, oh, the camera's gonna go to you and just wink and pause. Like I love that, like in the movie it's also referencing that scene in the movie where they as part of the credit scene, I'm guessing. But he's like when a character shows up is like name in the lower thirds who they're playing. And I love that kind of touch. It's this move like this behind the scenes making of the movie. This behind the scenes making of a movie is very Wes Anderson in a
that's
way.
who I was thinking about the whole time. I
Yeah,
was like, it's funny that Richard Linklater made this movie
yeah,
because when I watch his movies, I don't really get new wave at all.
yeah,
I get like like a 90s indie type of vibe from it where they were also doing some different experimental stuff at that point in film.
yeah,
But when I think about new wave, I think about Wes Anderson. So it's funny that like that Wes wasn't the person who made this movie. It was
yeah,
someone else. So that was
yeah,
interesting. But
yeah.
yeah.
So a bit of some small time box office news. Just gonna give you the brief over top three. Last week we did mention the record numbers and surprise success for some that a lot of people had for Predator Badlands. This comes in, it's sitting at number three. It's second week in theaters. It's made over 136 million globally off a $105 million budget. Of course, it debuted, I think, it debuted at number one, so now it's at number two. Still having good press. It kind of did take a bit, but it's still, the second. biggest performer in franchise history since Alien versus Predator. Of course, number two in its debut would be The Running Man. So far it's made almost 30 million globally off of a 110 million budget. Um, so this is kind of people are kind of saying this is might be Glenn Powell's first stumble as as a leading man. Um, but I do think it'll do well. We're near that time of the year, like in the next weeks, where people are traveling. People are looking for stuff to do. So I do think these movies will pick up and gain steam. Of course, the number one movie off fresh debut is Now You See Me, Now You Don't. It's the third movie in this franchise. Um, kind of a shock that this franchise now has three movies. Is not something I thought people would be clamoring for. It's made of 75 million globally off a $90 million budget. Yeah, so it'll do well. Of course, the odd statistic people are stating that the main driving audience behind this picture at 54% of ticket sales is women. And the China audience also delivered about 20 million. So I don't know why they decided to report that, more than half the tickets have been bought by women for this movie. That's an odd statistic to want to report. Like, hey, that means women want to see more movies about magicians. I don't know. That's and some big wig CEOs and look at that stat like, yes, more magic movies for the women. And we're gonna see a bunch of crap that no one wants to watch. But yeah, so of course, this past weekend, like keeping you updated on the status of the theaters and stuff like that. So far, this weekend they managed to make about 75 million in total. That's, of course, still upward trend compared from last year, up 17%. But it's still down about 9% from last year. And of course, you have Universal's Wicked for Good coming out, which kind of kicks off that, pre-Thanksgiving spree of movies coming around that time. I do think Wicked for Good will do well. It's coming rapidly off like the first movie only came out last year, so this is one of the few cases of you see a sequel or a part two to a movie that comes out rapidly after. Even when Avengers and Marvel do it, you kind of have to wait, even though it's part one and part two, wait like 2 years for the part two. So I think the rapid, release of the sequel will aid in its sales. So yeah.
So, in other news, the distributor boutiques are like a thing that are happening. So, like, boutique distributors are like picking up independent films that used to get picked up by like A24 and Neon and stuff like that. Well, those aren't happening anymore because of marketing budgets that are shrinking and how the fact that box office revenue is just not what it used to be. So each distributor picks up a specific audience. So for Watermelon Pictures, they picked up a lot of Palestinian movies. For the future film is female. That's for more women directors, and Suncatcher is for like disability stories. And they tailor their release strategies to build buzz within these communities specifically. They lose money on theater runs on purpose, accepting 50-50 ticket revenue splits, much more favorable to theaters than traditional deals, because having your film in theaters generates reviews and credibility needed to sell to Netflix and Hulu later, which makes a lot of sense. Um, so producers are actually getting paid from box office revenue immediately, not after the distributor recoups expenses. In traditional deals, filmmakers wait months or years to see any money, if ever. So some boutiques are flipping this completely. So movies that would be considered like prestige that would go to some of these film festivals, like Kristen Stewart's new film, they are not getting picked up by traditional buyers, so they're getting picked up by these smaller distributors. And I think that's what they're saying is that like it's just a new way of like getting these type of films out there, which makes a lot of sense because the studios that I think we associate with independent films are becoming a lot more mainstream and they're focusing on bigger projects with bigger budgets. They're not really focusing on the independent stuff as much.
Yeah.
But those films still exist. So like where do they go? And this is interesting because I didn't know that there was that problem because in my head, the those certain studios that I associate with these kinds of films, um, they were just they were distributing them. Like they were picking them up.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the fact that their models have been changing recently, and so actually these movies are getting like left behind. And with a director like I'm thinking like Kristen Stewart, like a very successful actress, the fact that her movie wasn't even getting picked up by these big people is interesting. So I'm glad that there's smaller ones that are picking it up and that they have a strategy of like getting these movies out there or getting these movies to like be on streamer so other people can see it and pick it up. Like
Yeah.
it's smart and I think definitely needed because these other ones they're moving on.
Yeah, it was always going to be needed. Like, yes, A24, Bloomhouse, Neon, though, like, even when I say Bloomhouse, they were independent, but they're more like horror, scary movie kind of, but they're still in an independent wheelhouse genre. Like I said, as they became bigger and more successful, finding these diamond in the rough pictures, they've kind of not they haven't stepped away as much as a lot of these big distributors like your MGMs, your Sony, your Universal. A lot of those have skewed to being more, we want big box office. Like we won't look for these projects or pay for them. We'll produce them ourselves. And now A24 and all these pictures have the cachet to say, okay, we can make movies ourselves as well and still pick up the indie slack. But because they're now doing their own thing and also filming their own projects, they can't spend as much time on these more niche films, which I think is a good thing. Like, especially like you mentioned, like Watermelon Pictures. They mostly deal with Palestinian cinema, which is helpful if you're a fan of different genres. You go, okay, I like these kind of films. Oh, this production company distributes these kind of films, I know where to go to if that's a niche I want to participate in as far as the films I want to watch. And it also allows the directors like, okay, I'm making a movie that deals with this topic. They go, okay, cool. These are the distributors I can go to and talk to them about the release of my picture, which I think works. And like I said, they also help the theaters like with their 50-50 split. Like 50-50 splits are more in favor for the theaters. Like the splits they get from major studios almost like 30% to the box, to not box office, but to like AMC and Cinemark and stuff like that. So a 50-50 split is more favorable. I think after a while we're gonna see, yes, we have these big box office pictures, but theaters are probably going to be dominated a lot more by these indie style pictures. And you see it now with AMC doing AMC Select, where a lot of these Cannes pictures that people reviewed and loved, they get prominent placing at AMC. I think more theaters are going to adopt that strategy as these boutique style distributors come more and more in vogue. So as we've mentioned a lot with actors, we've mentioned a lot about the state of the unions as far as that, but SAG-AFTRA has now pivoted to also renaming the SAG-AFTRA awards to the Actor Awards, aligning the show's name with its iconic statuette. It's a good move, they that brand, linkage works. It's called the Actors Awards. Most the average film person or non-film person is not going to know what the hell SAG is. So it keeps it in vogue in people's minds and stuff like that. Of course, these awards were first presented in 1995. So the actor is the name of the award that is presented at a show. And the showrunner and producer of the award show, John Crockett and Beth Williams, who is the chair of the awards committee, said in a joint statement, the show's name is now the Actor Awards presented by SAG-AFTRA, but the foundation remained the same. The foundation remains the same. As actors honoring actors. A statuette has always been called the Actor Awards, simply aligning the show's title with the name of the award itself and the union behind it. So they're just continuing that synchronicity between the two, especially since, the merger between SAG and AFTRA, they still refer to SAG-AFTRA, even though it's two unions coming to one. So this kind of just removing the branding of both the unions kind of, recognizes and familiars the merger of these two unions. So,
And it'll be weird to see that printed during the award season, the
mhm,
Actors Awards. I
yeah,
kind of liked SAG. I don't
yeah,
know. It was I knew that that award show focuses on like acting more than the other ones, but
hmm
it's fine. It's just like it'll take some getting used to because like
yeah. I mean, I'm okay with it because it's like I said, it's actors honoring actors.
mhm.
The Golden Globes are more so the press or media honoring actors, and then the Oscars, it's what the mythical academy of people from all the mix and match of genres and people who haven't watched this damn movie but voted for it on word of mouth. I am more acquiesced to like follow SAG, as far as what do people in your field think of your work, kind of thing, you know. So,
Okay, and in our last story, Ryan Coogler has confirmed that Black Panther 3 is his next movie.
mhm.
So he is ready to go back to Wakanda after the success of Sinners. Um, and he said that he can neither confirm or deny, but they're working hard on it. I think they're just starting like production on it. Which is interesting because like the last Black Panther movie, I think it was like a good send off to Chadwick Boseman. I think that it was like really special because of that. Obviously, uh, dang, my brain is going dead. Angela Bassett's performance was phenomenal, and I loved that movie specifically just because of her. I thought she was amazing. Um, Overall, the film, how do I feel about it? I don't know. Like, it's not a movie that I have revisited actually after I saw it the first time.
Mhm.
And Black Panther definitely was a movie that I watched a couple times after it came out. So it'll be interesting to see like what they do in the third one. I know there are like a little plans because Lupita's character is pregnant, so or had the baby. So
Yeah.
like there's stuff going on with that. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the story
Uh,
will be.
I mean, it was always an eventuality. I mean, of course,
Mm.
with Black Panther 2, like that was a massive rewrite with Chadwick Boseman's death, and the movie is honestly the half of the movie is dealing with the mourning and loss of him and everything. Like the movie is heavily about loss. Like the whole structure of the movie shifted once he passed, and that became the whole thematic element. Of course, we at that time of his death, you had people say we should recast, T'Challa and continue the movies. But I always knew that at some point they were always gonna pick up a third one. And with this, multiversal stuff Marvel has been doing, you have I think was it this is Doomsday, where it's a bunch of other parallel worlds in the multiverse all fight together. They were always when that started coming up, I was always where, okay, instead of directly just recasting Chadwick's character like that, which people wanted, I think they want a solidified route as Marvel phased into the multiverse stuff to give them access to do that, to do so. It was always going to happen. People think it might be sacrilege or disrespectful to Chadwick's legacy, but Chadwick himself, if you look at his career, always, a lot of his movies are portraying black cultural icons, from Thurgood Marshall to Jackie Robinson. And that's part of his legacy. I do think, he understood like T'Challa's important. Let's be honest, as kids, black people, we have very few superheroes that enter the pop culture. Like the two most prominent ones off the cuff, people are going to say Static Shock, Black Panther. Some people might say War Machine, which is kind of a sidekick to Iron Man. So I think the fact that he was aware of the importance of a black superhero also was also involved in them saying, okay, we can go forward and cast. Let's find a proper way to cast this character not only honors Chadwick, but also continues his legacy the same way. So, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about what we've been watching this week.
It is the holiday season, of course. Your my tradition is, them Charlie Brown movies start coming. I saw Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. My man's Franklin is sitting up opposite of the table, hella racist. I've actually read a story. I actually found out the backlog or the reason for that Charles Soch adding Franklin into that scene, even though he's at the opposite end of the table. I think at one point people were writing him and complaining about the inclusion of Franklin, like the only Black Peanuts character. People were upset that they added a black character, and he's like, "Well, fuck it, I'm gonna put him in my Thanksgiving special and have him give the most poignant lines, as to that." But yeah, so I watched that. Of course, it's the kickoff of the big holiday thing. I personally, I think this is a holiday movie. Gundam Wing. It's set during New Year's and winter. To me, that's a if Die Hard can be a Christmas time movie, Gundam Wing can be a winter movie as well. I will
Oh,
I
what's
will
Gundam Wing?
See, it's an anime thing.
Oh,
Don't
okay,
don't
okay.
don't get me started because I will
Oh,
I will go off
I
on that.
won't get you
So
started.
yeah, I've started on my holiday movie tradition binge list right now.
It's pretty good. I have
Yeah.
not started on mine yet. Should probably get on that. I don't know, it hasn't felt like holiday-ish to me yet. Like, I don't know why. I feel like I'm still stuck like somewhere in like late August, early September. Like I haven't caught up to
Yeah.
time is just going by so fast. Like I haven't caught
True.
up to any of
True.
anything. Like I haven't felt like, oh, it's time.
Yeah. Mentally, I was like, it feels like it's still September, but then I look, it's like, oh, it's November.
Like
You
almost
know,
Thanksgiving.
you
Thanksgiving's
know,
next week.
next week.
And I'm just
You
like, how
know.
did that even happen? I'm so out of tune, out of rhythm with what's going on. So
Yeah.
maybe now I can feel, maybe you're inspiring me to get into the festive
I mean, I'm in the
spirit.
spirit because the trees in our house are all bare. Like none of the trees in our front of our yard have leaves. So once those trees are gone, I'm like, all right, it's fall time. So
This
yeah,
is true.
yeah,
Yeah, I've gotten into the fall spirit because I was watching Gilmore Girls. So like, yes,
of
I
course.
was in that space, but like I wasn't fully there. But what have I been watching? Nothing. I've not been watching anything new, unfortunately. I think I've just been watching like reruns of stuff I've already seen, and I've been like, oh, I watched Elizabeth again with Kate Blanchett.
Mhm.
Great performance. She's fantastic. Um, and like perfect in that character. Like she was so good. And it got me thinking about the fact that like she lost the Oscar to Gwyneth Paltrow because Harvey Weinstein wanted Gwyneth Paltrow to win the Oscar for her movie Shakespeare in Love, and that was a whole debacle.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is like a video essay or like a podcast breaking down that moment because that was crazy. So they gave Kate Blanchett the Oscar like a couple years later for the second Elizabeth movie, but like
I mean,
that was a whole mess.
I mean, let's be honest. If you're debating on whether Gwyneth Paltrow or Kate Blanchett should get an Oscar, I mean, who's a better actress? With a more luxurious career? Who's like one of the who steals scenes constantly? It's Kate Blanchett. Like there was no
Yeah.
reason that I would associate that award with Gwyneth Paltrow. That's a major disrespect, So
Yeah, that was a crazy moment. But yeah, I haven't really been watching anything new. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. But I do want to watch some new movies. I do want to get into the holiday spirit. I want to watch The Family Stone.
mm,
That's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I'm not in the spirit yet, so I need to I gotta figure that out.
I mean, I think it's different when you're living up north and like the snow starts coming in. That's when it kind of triggers for
Maybe,
us.
yeah.
Like in Georgia, it's like when the leaves start falling because we don't get snow. Although we got flurries the other day. I was driving through the city. I was like, "Yo, it's flurries in Atlanta? Crazy! Hope it's snow." But yeah, I think your region depends on when that little thing in your head snaps.
The switch gets flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about because I don't know, I was watching something and they were talking about politicians and actors and they were kind of listing some. And I was like, oh, Donald Trump is technically an actor.
Yeah.
He was in Eloise in the Plaza and in Home Alone. Lost in New York, one of the best movies ever. Why do I love that? I don't think that the movie is not as good as the first one, obviously. And it's like, I don't know, it's not like the best movie, but like for some reason that movie is like very important. Home Alone, Lost in New York, very important, and so is Eloise in the Plaza.
Yeah.
And if only he would just like make cameos and stuff and like not be the leader of this country. Like I don't know, so many things have been different. Anyways, I don't want to talk about it. So yeah. I'm going to stop talking because I'm actually losing my mind. So thank you guys for listening. We hope that you're all doing well and taking care of yourselves. Please make sure to check all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Au revoir.